Vanakkam, Namaste, a very good day to you all. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit on quantum physics and comparatively also our ancient shastras, what they say about this. Now, Albert Einstein, a great physicist, when he saw the Nataraja statue for the first time, he said that he can see all the elements that are present in the universe represented in the statue. But he didn't understand what the depiction of the statue meant. Fast forward few more years, Fritjof Capra, an eminent physicist who has studied the Nataraja statue, had a eureka moment one day in his house. He understood that the Nataraja statue represents the dance of Shiva, or as normally known as the cosmic dance. And he realized at that point of time that this represented the whole interconnectedness of everything in the universe. And then again, we fast forward to the years 2008, 2012. The Center for Atomic Research in Switzerland, they created and they built a large collider, which they call the Large Hadron Collider, to do investigation on quantum particles. Now, the Indian government presented them with a statue of Nataraja, which stands proudly at the entrance of this institute in Switzerland, and which in a kind of way shows the transition of Nataraja from Albert Einstein's mind to Fritjof Capra, and then finally finding its home in the CERN Institute in Switzerland. Now, Nataraja, for us who understand that it denotes the dance of Shiva, which is the cosmic dance we call it, because he represents the interplay of the elements in a variety of ways that give manifestation to everything of the universe. Now, at the CERN Institute, they accelerated two protons in a vacuum chamber to reach as much as possible towards the speed of light, and when they collided, it broke into the smallest particle possible, and they named it God's particle. Okay, that's what they discovered in the CERN Institute. Now, that is the part of the quantum physics development on a rough scale. We have not gone into the minute details. It's better that the physicists, they explain it more than me. Right? So, On the other hand, let's take a look of the ancient scriptures of India. Now, we have Shiva Shakti, and Shiva and Shakti is a representation of energy form in an image form. So, for us, we know, because we study the ancient scriptures, Shiva and Shakti are one. They are not two separate entities, but one single entity, but its characteristics and its behavior seems dual when things start to happen. So we must understand from the beginning that Shiva and Shakti are one energy, but they depict the way the energy functions in a dual nature, and it leads to duality. And then we also have to know that Shiva and Shakti, for us to relate to them, are given in the human form as a man and wife, right? And they have two sons. The eldest son is known as Vinayaka, Ganesha, or popularly known as the elephant face god. And he has a younger brother who's known as Muruga, Skanda, Kirtirkeya, and he has many other names. Now, what I want to share with you all today is the similarities of the ancient scriptures when you put it against the background of quantum physics. So, I want you to analyze and want you to come to your own conclusion on what we are talking about today, whether it makes sense to you. So, let me describe on the characteristics of Shiva, Shakti, Vinayaka, and Muruga. Now, Shiva and Shakti, there's a saying in Tamil, without Shiva, there's no Shakti. Without Shakti, there's no Shiva. Which means to say that they have to act together, although they act separately, but at the same time they are always together. Right? And in the ancient scriptures, there are a lot of other names that we give to Shiva and Shakti, because why we do that is that one character is not sufficient in human language to explain what they represent. So we have to use many different terminology for people to understand. So Shiva Shakti is also represented by the word Swatantriya Shakti, Spandana, Spurata, Prakasha Vimarsha, Urmi, Bala, Aishwarya, Kirtirka, and so forth. Now, let's look at the Swatantriya Shakti. Swatantriya means, in English, it's the absolute self-illumination freedom, or the absolute freedom to self-illuminate. Please remember that. Okay, that's Swatantriya Shakti. Spandana, Spanda or Spandana, means self-throbbing. Self-throbbing. Now, self-throbbing, what it means is that it is at one spot in the dimension of space. It's not moving. It is exactly in the same spot, but there is an apparent when we look at it, apparently it seems like it's moving, so it denotes a throbbing. That is spandana, self-throbbing or self-illuminating, self-throbbing, pulsating nature. That is spandana. Now spurata. Spurata means Sanskrit. When we turn it to translate it to English, it can mean a compact mass, a compact spherical mass. Okay, spurata means a compact spherical mass of energy. That's what we are talking about. And then prakasha and vimarsa. Now, prakasha is self-illuminating. Prakasha denotes the capacity of it having its own light. It doesn't have any other input externally. There's nothing that's coming from outside. There's no plug-in. There's no energy source from anywhere else, but its own intrinsic energy source. So it's self-light or self-illuminating, which we loosely call God's light. That's prakasha, right? And then we have vimarsa. Vimarsa means self-awareness or self-recognition. Now this God's light, prakasha, through its vimarsa aspect, it's the same thing, but its vimarsa aspect, it has a self-recognition principle, and it has a self-aware principle of itself. Now, keep that in mind, because it's a very important concept where it denotes the principle underlying thought constructs, thought process, or the very basic of thinking itself. Now, prakasha vimarsa, they clearly, if you understand what it means, it shows that this particle or this God's light knows that it is functioning, how it's functioning, why it's functioning. So it's like a precursor to our thought itself. Okay? And one of the terms that I like to borrow from physics that I like a lot is, I prefer to call it, this prakasha vimarsa, as radio light. Why I say radio light is more suitable is because radio light denotes that it has self-energized light which contains sound. That's what radio light means, I think. So prakasha vimarsa has light and has sound as one unit, not two, together. But in an aspect towards manifestation, then they get separated. So like they have photon and phonon in them, and then when they get separated, then one comes in the light wave and one comes in the sound wave. Now, that is on the aspect of Shiva and Shakti and what they mean and what their characteristics is. Okay? Now, let's take a look at Shiva and Shakti as a single unit of particle, self-pulsating, self-illuminating, self-vibrating particle, right? Now you must understand that what physicists have found is that this single particle also has the nature through quantum entanglement. I repeat, this single particle has as its nature through quantum entanglement to form waves. So I'll give you a very simple example. where we can correlate it to our thought. Now, we say that thought is a window or a bindu. That means thought, before the thought construct starts, there is a compact mass of energy that is a singular point, like Shiva or the God's particle, however you want to call it, right? And due to this self-pulsating point, it has the ability to infect other similar particles around it, and as they move together in unison, it becomes a wave. Now, we all know by our own experience that when one thought construct arises from a point and then into a wave and then it goes down again into a point, the cessation of that one thought allows for the arising of the next thought. I hope you understand. The cessation of one particular thought allows for the arising of the next thought. Now, this is a very important concept written in the ancient scriptures because of the continuity of this waveform and particle and waveform thought. We are able to build our thought concepts and thought constructs from earlier thought into the next thought, so that the information contained in the initial particle is transferred to the next and the next and the next, and then it keeps on growing further and bigger until we can construct complex, abstract and non-abstract concepts. That's how thought works. And then I'll reverse it for you, very simple, which is written in the ancient scriptures. Is now, let's say you have experienced something through your thoughts, and the thoughts have become a memory. So, from the wave-like experience, it is thought in a particle form, a single point form in your memory. Now, when the outside external world triggers through our senses, a smell, a similar scene, what we see, what we hear, what we touch, triggers this memory in our thought construct. Again, this trigger directs our thought to that single point again, and that will grow into a wave, and we can, from the trigger, we can analyze and get the single point, and then we get the whole works of whatever our memory was, and we can relive it, we can re-experience it. So, if the particle and the wave are not working together and they are not one unit, this is not possible for us to think, to have memory, to have thought constructs, to build concepts. Now, Shiva and Shakti, whatever earlier I explained, and together with the thought constructs I explained, right? Thought constructs are happening within us in the microcosm, right? The same principle when you apply it to external universe is the macrocosm, and that's how manifestation takes place. Now, the next one, let's look at Vinayaka, right, or the elephant face god. Now here I would like to change the name from people terming it as elephant face god to truncated god. No more elephant face god. Okay, that's where everything went wrong in English. In Sanskrit we know, in the ancient languages we know, the scriptures we know, but when you translate to English it's totally lost because everybody says it's elephant face god. No, we call it a truncated system that is represented by Vinayaka. Again, Lord Ganesha represents the Mula Guru or the Muladhara Chakra. Is the Guru for the Muladhara Chakra. Now, the Muladhara Chakra denotes the earth element. So, Vinayaka denotes solidification, the process of solidification. So normally what we do, all the Indians know that what they do is when they go to a temple, they pray to Vinayaka first, because Vinayaka means remover of obstacles. Why do we pray to him? Because anything we want in this world, if we want it to materialize, it has to be in a solid state most of the time. What we want things, material things, they are solid. So by praying to him and asking him to do us a favor to remove the obstacles for the solidification and materialization and manifestation of what we want. And again also we ask him a favor to remove the obstacles so that our prayers will reach the main deity or any other gods we want to offer our prayers to, because he really is in the spiritual realm and also the scientific of the realm of physics. He is the remover of obstacles. Now, quantum scientists say when the Big Bang happened, right? After that, this particle, for it to diversify, it has to go through a very long tunnel-like system or truncated system, which to be optimum level, it has to be a vacuum where the particles get accelerated to reach the speed of light or near to the speed of light, and then through the collision, then the diversity happens and new matter is formed. So that's what Vinayaka, the truncated god, signifies. By praying to him, we are asking his favor to allow this process to happen so that things materialize in our life. And the whole universe, from Shiva Shakti, where the particle moves and then the particle becomes a wave and then it goes through this truncated system, and then the universe, the fabric of the universe is manifested first. Now, why I say the fabric of the universe? Imagine it's total darkness in space. And once this acceleration happens and matter that comes up from it forms the different aspects and forms the very fabric of universe, which in the ancient scriptures call it as the mirror. Because the process, we call it in the ancient language, Sanskrit, we call it Vama or Vamana. Vam means to emit, to project, to warm it out. So through this truncated process, the whole diversity of matter which was contained in the early particle of Shiva Shakti gets diversified, gets projected out into forming the fabric of universe, which acts like a mirror. And after further diversification, it appears as though it's objects in the mirror. When it solidifies, we have the stars, we have the moon, we have the earth, we have Venus, we have Saturn, we have the sun. They all only appear as objects in the fabric of the universe, which was initially projected out, and then these things were later projected into the fabric of the universe. I hope you all can follow me up to now. Now, this is the three first phases, two, we call it two, but it's three because of Shiva Shakti, the movement of energy, and the materialization or the solidification of the whole universe is denoted by Vinayaka. Now we come to Muruga, the youngest brother. Now, Muruga, Skanda, Kartarkeya. In Tamil, there is a saying, we say, Kan Kanda Devam. What it means in English is that the visible God. We call Muruga the only visible God. Now, why do we say that? Now, we have to understand what Muruga denotes, the image depicts. Muruga represents The next phase of energy is transformation from a pulsating particle to a moving wave and to being accelerated and forming the universe and objects appearing in the universe, and then these objects that are living in the universe, the energy transforms further and becomes knowledge and activity. There are only two types of energy in the universe that we can really relate to and we can see with our naked eyes, hear, smell, everything we can do with our senses, is knowledge and activity, and that's what Muruga represents. And that's why we say he is the only visible God. Right? And the energy transformation of Muruga is represented by his chakra, which is the exactly the same chakra as the star of David. So I hope that you understand what I'm trying to picture here. Now, I'm not talking about quantum physics. That I just gave a brief description of what I understand about quantum physics, starting from Einstein, Albert Einstein, Fritjof Capra, and the CERN Institute. But on this side, what I talked about, Shiva Shakti, Vinayaga, Muruga, and everything, is my knowledge from studying the ancient Indian scriptures only, not from science. All the terminology that I translated into English or I equated it with the quantum physics terminology, I first learned it in Sanskrit and Tamil language of India. Now, are we talking about a blind faith, religious faith, or are we talking about science? You decide yourself. You decide yourself which is which. I just want you all to understand now, in the ancient scriptures, there's so much knowledge contained, right? But people like Lord Macaulay, who the British Empire sent to India, he stayed in India and studied for 2 years on the education system in India, why the Indians are very smart, why their unity is so different, and there was a lot of why questions, and it took him 2 years to find the answer. And finally, when he went back to the British Parliament, and it is recorded and written on the history of the British Parliament of his talk on the Indian education system in the 1800s. I can't remember it. You Google it. And he specifically said India's greatness lies in its verdict education system, and if we want to conquer India, we have to break the education system and replace it with an inferior system so that the Indians will be divided and we can divide and rule them forever. And they planned, executed, and destroyed a very good education system of India, the ancient system, and they replaced it with a very, very basic education system that till today is photocopied all over the world in many countries that they colonized, and which has led to division and the local society not being able to come up in their life because of this having no unity. So they broke the very fabric of a society by destroying a very good education system. Now, I ask you all one important question. If you find something that is better than yours, that gives answers to everything that a human being needs to know in this universe, would you take it back to your society and to the rest of the world and allow them to study this so that they can upgrade their own life? Or would you see it as a threat to your progress, material progress, and destroy it and kill it so that you can replace it with a very deregulated system of education that has no value, and you go out in the world and tell the whole world that you have the best education system, but you didn't tell the world that you destroyed a excellent education system where the science is really, really very superior and very high level. Now, I urge all of you, especially the scholars, the scientists, the physicists, doctors, whoever you are in the world, especially the Western world, enough of doing rubbish to other people. Please, my advice to you is start learning Sanskrit, and please make sure your children from the age of 3 or 4 or 5 start learning Sanskrit, because we have a complete system of knowledge, and it talks everything from this earth until the universe, and also dark matter and dark energy. So we have a very, very excellent and high valued science. So stop looking at it as a very basic religious faith. Look at it as science. And why I'm urging you all to learn this language and study the shastras is that because only now I am able to connect what I learn in the shastras to quantum physics, because the terminology in English was not available until lately, until after 2012. Before that, I couldn't compare any terminology that was in the scriptures to the English words. So you are behind. You are really behind. And so instead of you taking another 1,000 years to find all the right terminology to match what we are talking about, please take the shortcut, learn Sanskrit so that you can be in tandem, and then you can use this knowledge to benefit every human being in the world. Isn't that what knowledge is supposed to do? Pranam.